Alright, so considering the popularity of my other 10 Heroforge tip videos, I figured, since I still have a lot of these up my sleeve, why not make another one? So here we are. Alright, so tip number 1 is actually not a tip of my own, but rather a tip that I learned from a person on the Reddit, and I will credit them here, and that is how to make realistic looking lightsabers. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take the long Eskrima stick here, and then you want to color in the hilt, of course. And then you want to take any color, really, it doesn't matter which, but let's just start with Ignistone for red lightsaber here. And we pull all these up to red all the way up, because this is an evil lightsaber. We pull the roughness all the way down, opacity all the way up, and glow all the way up. That one is important. And now we are going to go into decals. We smack down a decal on this, and just to make this more visually clear, I will pull this up to high all the way. We'll do the same thing, opacity max, roughness max, glow max. And then you see this, we want to take this big decal on it and we raise it up all the way like this. Yeah, until there's just a little bit of a red outline down there. Now we have this very bright white, and this is when we do wrap. So we start turning it down like this, and now yeah, you can see what we're going for. And now we just twist this lightsaber from whatever angle we want this this picture to be. I mean, this is not a very menacing angle. This is, yeah, like there's no way to get this effect all the way around, but this is the best we can do for this situation. We simply twist it around for whichever angle we want to take the photo from, and there we go. We have a very nice glowing looking lightsaber. And of course this looks better if you're pro and you can use lighting, and you can add an additional red glow to it, but I think it's not absolutely necessary. I think you can make a decent looking lightsaber even without the lighting, but of course it helps. Alright, so this next tip number 2, is how you can make better looking tattoos. And what I will show you here is, I mean, anybody knows how to make certain looking tattoos, right? Like, it's very easy to just take this and then you duplicate the skin, and then you pull this down to like dark blue or whatever, and you color this in, and here you go. You have fairly realistic looking skin tattoos. But what a lot of people don't know is if we take this first tattoo and we drag the color all the way down to dark like this, and then we put on an additional layer of the exact same tattoo like this. I don't know why it's all white now. I think it's because I colored it, the decal white before. And we take the normal skin color and we stack it on. Now you see, because we have 2 layers of the same tattoo, the lower layer, which is way darker with this color up here, is going to be much more distinct. And there's other ways we can make this look clearer as well. I mean, we could drag this up a little bit. We could remove the skin technically to make it even darker, but in my opinion that doesn't make it look better. So yeah, you can make all sorts of kind of funky patterns with this if you stack multiple ones. The only downside is that it will take 2 decal slots to make one of these tattoos. Alright, what I will show now in this third tip is not going to be on the same model, and that is how we make realistic looking stockings in Heroforge. And also some details you can do. So what you want to do is, obviously, this is a very basic, simple female model. There's nothing too special about this. There's no decals applied. It's all just monocolored. And basically what we do is, after we put on heels to go with them, it's not necessarily, but I would say it looks a lot better that way. You go into decals on the legs and you click Panda. And with Panda, then you can take the skin color you started with, you copy it, and then you smack it down like this, and you lower it all the way down into dark like this. And then you raise the roughness, and you raise the fuzz, and like this. And then whether you want to keep the skin enabled or not depends on how see-through you want the stockings to be. I personally prefer to keep the same skin tone, so like it's still the same duplicated skin, but I prefer to remove the skin option so that it looks a little bit more like cloth, and that's also why I raise the roughness and why I pull up the fuzz from 0. Now, That's just a basic pair of stockings, but what you can do is if you go into additional layers of decals, you can add these patterns to them. Like for example, this you can do to outline the stockings further up, or you can I mean, there's a lot of different patterns. My preferred one, and the one I'll use for this example, is probably this one. And if you let's say this is really fancy pair of stockings, so we'll make those gold. Now you see you have not just a pair of stockings, but you have a pair of gold gilded kind of decorated stockings. Alright, so to get back to the original model, it's time for tip number 4, and that is how we make... I've shown a lot of times how to make a face look dirty, and it's by applying this roan after you've applied everything else. However, what I will show you now is how you can make a face look as though it has been dirtied and then cleaned or disturbed in some way. And what I'll do is you take the roan, and this time you put it on the bottom layer, and then you can do this with a lot of different ones, but the two examples I'll use now is I will use the burn scar face here, and I will also use the crying makeup one. And what we'll do is simply we take the skin color, the original skin color, and we color this in, this in, this in, and then we can take the same dirt and we color this inner layer of the burn scar like that. And I will take away the light just so you can see it better. Now you can see we have this really nice kind of, obviously there's a little bit of decal still here, but now by switching up the color, you can see these nice lines here that outline where the dirt has been washed away by something. Maybe it's been raining, or maybe this guy has been like wiping his face after crying, because as you can see there's these very nice subtle lines here of like clean skin between all the dirt. And this can go a long way in adding some extra detail to a face, especially if you are trying to make a character who is in a specific emotional state of mind. Okay, and now for tip number 5, I will show you how you can make militaristic looking kind of English boot wraps. And what I mean by that is there's two different pants we can use. We can either use the rope belt cloth pants, or we can use the Kung Fu monk pants. However, the rope belt cloth pants are obviously newer and look nicer, so we're gonna stick with those. And basically what we want is we want a pair of boots that looks like it links up with these wraps here. And my preferred ones to use for this is actually using double model, and then using on the extra model I use a thinner version of these boots that don't look as though they bulk out from the rest. However, even without double model, you can simply use either these ones, but to make these look decent, obviously right now you can see the boots stick out a lot more from these wraps. So what we do is we go into lower and we raise this up to around 60, which is way more than usual, but it doesn't matter because we're not going to have any boots that are going to look chunkier because of it. And then the muscularity is also good if it's pulled up high, because that will make this part of the legs look thicker. And now if we color these in the same color, so we can first take this and color that, and then we go into, let's just take this for now, and we color all this the same. And now if you zoom out a little bit, you kind of see where it's starting to look like it's reminiscent of those English World War I soldiers. Now if you don't like this little Aladdin upturn here, like I said, there's also the other option I mentioned before. But if you don't have double model, then you can also just use the button shoes, these ones. And I admit they look a little bit dorkier, but I think honestly it's not that bad. I quite like this. I think it looks pretty soulful, so to say. Now then, for tip number 6, this is one that a lot of people probably already know, and that is, let's say you have a decal, but you don't know where to put it. Let's say you don't want to put the main decal on the face because you feel it already looks dirty enough, or maybe you don't want it to look dirty at all, and you don't know where to put this. And in most cases, if I don't know where to put this decal, all I will do is simply I will drag it down, and now you see the surroundings here, these rocks, they're kind of light. So what we'll do is we take a kind of lightish brown color like this, and if we put that down, now the boots are going to have a very different kind of texture that melts between the boots and the legs. You see this? And I know it's not a very revolutionary tip, a lot of people already do this, but since I haven't mentioned it before, I figured I would still include it. And basically all it does is just, it adds this additional layer of realistic dirt between the legs and the boots that can go a long way in, you know, gritting up a character a little bit. Now then, speaking of tips that a lot of people already know about, there is a section which I feel is often very neglected, and this is the mask page. Now, a lot of people do use these, obviously, but people have a habit of not using them so much if they're using like helmets or other things to cover the helmet, and I think this is a missed opportunity because I think it's very well combined with some. So if we take this mask off, for example, and we put on, like, let's say one of the old helmets is usually unusable. Now you can see there's a problem with this, and that is, even with this model being pretty large, the helmet looks massive because it's so old and it's so bulky and chunky like the old things tend to be. However, this face, there's a way we can make this look bigger, and that is by simply we put on a mask, and if we color these in real quick, now you can see suddenly the helmet doesn't look so big anymore because it's balanced out by the mask. But this doesn't only apply for helmets that don't show the face. I mean, there's other ones, there's fully covering ones. Now, let's say we put on the Vizard helmet, and now if we took away this this mask, then you see this looks very, very exposed from beneath. I mean, if you're in a duel with this guy, just grab a knife and stab him in the underchin and you'll probably win. But let's say if we put this mask on, suddenly it looks a lot more padded, it looks a lot more bulked up, and now there's other ways we can combine this as well. I mean, one of the examples I like is, let's say we put on this on the neck, and then for chest piece, the main chest piece, we put on plate, let's see, where is it? Here we go. Now this plate mail has a very distinct little gambeson on the inside, and let's say we make this the same color as the mask and the neck wrap, and suddenly if we tilt the head just a tiny bit like that, now you see you have pretty much a full padded layer between the chest piece and the helmet, and it does look very, very nice in my opinion, because a lot of people, at least in medieval times, they did wear these kind of like long, tall, neck-heavy gambesons that would try and cover their skin up so it wouldn't be as easy for opponents to get to them, because obviously the neck was a very common vulnerable area against armored knights. Now, this next tip is going to be a little bit more broad, and that is because I've been approached by 3 different people lately trying to make barbarian-esque characters or struggling with body proportions, and usually most of them, they're on the right track. You know, they've raised the body size up massively because, you know, they want to be a big burly barbarian, and then they pull up the upper and the arms and the lower, etc., and all this stuff. But then they will make this mistake. Let's take off the chest piece because this is a barbarian. They will type in loincloth, and they will put on this because, like, this is the most obvious barbarian one. And then for the gloves, you know, they will put on these like something like this. And now there's a problem with this, and that is, like, I mean, what is this? Like, this doesn't look like a barbarian loincloth. It looks like a massive gilded diaper. And the problem with these old pieces is that they are so fucking bulky that they make the rest of the model look small by contrast. I mean, look at these legs. Like, these look like tiny little chicken legs now. And this hand looks abysmally small, and it's not because they actually are small, it's because the clothes are so chunky and big by comparison. But now, let's say we do something real simple. We just trade out the gloves for this, and we trade out the legs for, you know, some underwear. Now, this is not as detailed, obviously, but now the model, it actually looks big, and it looks big and chunky. It's all about contrast, you know, like things look bigger or smaller next to one another. So basically what I've been trying to tell these people who are making these barbarian models is it's not about the measurements or the proportions that you put on the model, it's about the clothing that you choose. And basically what this tip boils down to is be careful with the old pieces that you use and how chunky they are. And if you're trying to make a barbarian model, then honestly just use the underwear with package if you want, and just use some normal fingerless gloves instead of trying to fit in these huge spiked gauntlets, whatever the fuck that is. Now, for the ninth and penultimate tip that I will share, there's a lot of chess pieces in Heroforge that you might think are off limits, things that you would never assume to use because, let's say you're making like a big paladin male kind of hero kind of character, so you're thinking, oh, I need to find something really platey and heavy, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you can use items that, I mean, this of course, maybe not for paladin, but let's look at this piece for example. You wouldn't assume to use this on a male character most of the time. Because it's obviously a very feminine piece of gear. However, there's very easy ways to circumvent this, even if you don't have pro. And believe me, if you have pro and you can use double model, then you can do some crazy stuff with this chess piece. But let's assume you don't have pro. Then all you really need to do is, if you go in here, into this page, and you, let's say, I mean, you could smack this on and it would only show the shoulders, but it's not perfect. But let's say this. If you put this on and then you go into the neck as well and you put either the bandana on, or hell, you can put on the large wrapped scarf if you want. And hell, if you put on the large scarf, then you could also just swap to the street hacker jacket and you don't actually see any skin here. So you don't see that it's that kind of chest piece. And instead now with the scarf and this, you have a nice kind of, like, these belt wraps, they look pretty cool in my opinion. So you shouldn't limit yourself to using things that only look decent at first glance, you know? Like, try combine these under, over, and neck pieces all together to, with whatever chest piece you choose, and you can find some combinations that, believe me, a lot of people don't use because they just don't look that far. Now then. We have ourselves the mighty hero. He's got the lightsaber of Darth Vader, he's got English boot wraps and experience on the Western Front, he's got a helmet that survived 1,000 jousts with enough neck padding to survive Arya Stark's trampoline assassinations. And all that's missing on this character is an epic pose, a way to truly express this character's limitless combat prowess. We shall spend hours gloriously posing this man to perfection. Or we can just go on the community page and we can find someone else who's made a way cooler pose. Oh boy. Oh, what is this? Heavy upswing by Tamati. Import. Hold up. Pose. Oh my god. That's it. That's it. He's perfect. There we go. Nothing more needed. Maybe I should give him back his lightsaber, but that's about it. Here we go. We edit this arm a little bit, put a little bit closer, and you know, yeah, there we go, almost, we almost have it. The point is, this tip, alright, so, basically, this is not a tip from me. This is me saying, the community page of Heroforge is, it's amazing. There are so many poses in there, and not just poses, I mean, you can find so much amazing stuff in there. And the same goes for Reddit, by the way, like, this page is full of gems, and of course I implore you to make your own poses. And I know that if you don't have pro, you can't just import something, but you can still use these poses as resources to begin with. So you could take one of these, you could take this, and then you could work off of it and just build a character up from this. And I'm not saying that you should just lazily copy poses from other people, but believe me when I say that there's a lot to learn from these. And I'm not just talking about poses. I mean, there is so much cool stuff that you can find on this community page, and the same goes for Reddit. I mean, what is this? This is someone who's made a robot chicken from World of Warcraft, and this is just one of many examples of some really cool stuff that I'm finding just now as I'm recording this. And whether it's on the community page or the Reddit, believe me, just learn from this, take from it, and then improve your own stuff accordingly, because believe me, I did. A lot of the tricks that I know now aren't things that I entirely picked up myself, you know. Some of these things, like the lightsabers I mentioned before, are things that I learned from other people. Now, I hope these 10 tips have been useful. I hope that you can appreciate that this time I didn't make half the video about little glove tips and tricks. I tried to, in fact, restrict myself from making anything about gloves at all. And if you like this video, then please press like, and if you dislike this video, then by all means press dislike, and I will see you next time.